seemed to raise once as though she was going to take a violent dive, but sort of checked, as though she had scooped the water up and had leveled herself. She then seemed to settle very, very quiet until the last, when she rose up, and she seemed to stand 20 seconds. Then she went down with an awful grating, like a small boat running off a shingly beach.
I looked out of the lifeboat and saw the water moving up and down, and the Titanic, the big lovely Titanic, went down and then up, and she busted in two and went down again. Washington Dawes, Jr.
I cannot say I saw it sink right plain, but to my imagination I did, because the lights went out before she went down. She was well down at the head at first, when we got away from her at first, and to my idea she broke forward, and the after part righted itself, and made another plunge and went right down. I fancied I saw her black form. It was dark, and I fancied I saw her black form. I heard several little explosions, but it was not such explosions as I expected to hear. This was before and while sinking. Judging by what I could see from a distance, she gradually disappeared until the forecastle head was submerged to the bridge. Then she turned right on end and went down perpendicularly. She did not seem to be broken in two. She went lower and lower until the lower lights were extinguished, and then suddenly she rose by the stern and slipped from our sights. A series of explosions commenced. These were dull booms, one following the other in rapid succession, accompanied by the slow sinking of the ship by the head. Then she continued to go down until she was practically in a vertical position. When the explosions ceased for a brief instant, then they became more frequent than before, and the Titanic sank out of sight.
We lay about 1/4 of a mile from the Titanic for about an hour. We could see little confusion. The lights of the ship were burning out, but it seemed as if the boat was filling gradually. Suddenly the craft listed, turned up on end with great rapidity, and went down. The boat went down so straight there was little suction, just a long, loud, hissing roar, followed by an explosion, and if I remember rightly, a second one.
The ship broke in two, and there was an astounding rattling noise, as though the machinery had broken loose. Finally she sank, quietly.
Suddenly a rift in the water. The sea opened up and the surface foamed like giant arms spread around the ship. The vessel disappeared from sight and not a sound was heard. Margaret Brown.
We stopped there and watched her sink gradually. We could see the people about on the deck before the lights went out. As she went away by the head, so the lights went out, and we heard some explosions as she was going down. But all the lights went out, and we could only see a black object in front of us. It was light enough to see the stern straight up in the air. As the stern stood up in the air, so all the lights went out. The bow well bent in the water, as though ready for a dive. After the lights went out some 10 minutes before the end, she was like some great living thing who made a last superhuman effort to right herself, and then failing, dove bow forward to the unfathomable depths below. After we had rowed 300 yards or so, we rested on our oars. We watched the big ship's bow sinking lower and lower. Suddenly the lights dimmed. In a minute the lights went out entirely, and then the stern herself seemed to rise perpendicularly in the air. Then there were two loud explosions, a grinding crash, and the big ship plunged out of sight. As soon as we were at a safe distance from the Titanic, we turned to watch the great liner settling gradually down into the water. It seemed like a nightmare. The lights flickered out deck by deck until the bow was quite submerged. Then with a lurch, the Titanic slid forward under the waves. Instantly there sounded a rumble like Niagara, with 2 dull explosions. A pause of silence held everything and everybody spellbound until the stern shot back into sight and immediately sank again. Then there burst out the most ghastly cries, shrieks, yells, and moans that a mortal could ever imagine. No one can describe the frightful sounds that gradually died away to nothing.